Ladies and gentlemen, most of you would know John Markham. A lot of you would have admired his lovely DH-83 Foxmoth aircraft. It's an absolute pleasure to look at. John gets a lot of pleasure out of it too, but we're not here to talk about that today. We're going to talk about another aircraft that he owns, and that's a Stinson L5. I've got an image of it here, so while John starts off to tell you something about it and how he came across the aircraft, I'll just hit the button and you'll be able to see what it looks like.
I've done a lot of work in the outback, Northern Territory, Queensland, what have, and used to hire aircraft to take there. And my 50th birthday I decided to go to America and buy a Piper Chieftain. Took Glenn Capel, the engineer from the Aero Club, with me, and wanted to go via the Arctic Circle and what have you back to Perth. That'll be rather interesting. Everything went fine until we got over India. And the port of entry there was a place called Ahmedabad, and they really gave us a hard time, which is another story. And I had planned to refuel halfway across at a place called Nagpur. And I said, well, I have to go to the same rigmarole again. And they said, yes, you will. So I said to Glenn, we'll fill it up, go overweight. And you all know Sod's Law, an hour out of Ahmedabad, IFR conditions, and the left engine went. I couldn't maintain height. And we had a bit of a struggle in our hands, and eventually I got into this field. We're very lucky. We had 5 minutes before the airport was closing, and they were able to guide us in. Initially it was congratulations, well done, and then we were put under house arrest. We'd come from Pakistan, accused of gold smuggling, drug smuggling. Glenn said, I want to contact the Australian Embassy. They said, no dice. But in the under house arrest, he managed to get a call through his wife, and she got hold of the Australian Embassy, and they did a wonderful job. While it took a week to get the repairs and parts done, Glenn got a message through to John Douglas. He went to the RFDS, put the parts in a diplomatic bag, and we got them quite quickly. So we got that repaired after a week and continued on to Australia, but the people in the villages there were wonderful. So I decided to go back and take them some presents, and I bought some caps and jumpers from the Aero Club and some books, and went back to these villages, and they thought they'd never see us again, and were very, very appreciative. And here in this old hangar there was the Stinson, which you can see there as a wreck, and the Tiger Moth. And we had a chat, and they were never going to do anything with them. So 5 years, 5 trips later, I finally got them out. It's quite a difficult country to deal with. So that's how I found it, by fluttering out of the sky, and it sort of means a bit to me now.
John, do you have any short history of the aircraft? Tell us something about its beginnings and how it got there.
Murray Fletcher, who's here, can you put your hand up please, Murray? I don't get much time, but he's researched these things for me, and so it's thanks to him I'll be able to give you this information. And I must thank him also. I took the 2 aircraft to Kundaman, and I'm not for standing around aircraft these days, and he stood there both days, morning till dusk, got sunburned lips and did a great job explaining the history, so thank you, Murray. The Stinson's got a significant World War II military history, serving in both Burma and India with the US Army Commander Unit in an ambulance and personnel recovery role. Manufactured by the Stinson Division of Consolidated Vultee Aircraft Corporation, it came off the assembly line in July 1944 and was delivered to the US military later that year. Serving in at the same time of the cessation of hostilities, it was disposed of to an engineering club, and that's where I found it.
How did you get it back to Australia, John, and who put it in its current shape?
It came back in a very large container with the Tiger Moth, which is still over my hangar, and the Stinson is an absolute wreck, and being Indians, there's spares for spares.
Now, the aircraft was used, and not this aeroplane, but the type, the Stinson L5B, was used to develop a very unique landing system, and this is probably going to blow a few of you away in what John tells you about it. And I've got a couple of photographs here which we'll project while John's talking.
Yes, just before getting onto that, I had it restored in Coolangatta because they'd done one before, and just prior to picking it up was Anzac Day, and they asked if I'd do a low-level pass on the beach over there. And I said I'd be delighted to. And they said, the authorities have said they'll shut a blind eye in the Anzac spirit so they can put on a show for the boys. So the first Anzac day, I came down the beach very low, and as I said, having found it at a wreck, little navigation lights twinkling in the gloom, and apparently on the ground they were singing "I am, you are, we are Australian," and it was a great feeling. I enjoyed it so much that I went back. I kept it there for 3 years doing Remembrance Day and Anzac Day. At the RSL luncheon when I was introduced for a speech of thanks, the president said, "This is the guy who knocked my head off," and the lone piper fell off the rock. So it couldn't have been all bad because, as I said, they went back and did it. But getting onto this Brodie system, as it was called, an apparatus called the Brodie System, named after its inventor, Coast Artillery Lieutenant James H. Brodie, was developed late in the war to launch and retrieve Stinson L5 and Oster L4 Cub aircraft from the side of ships at sea for the purpose of submarine detection or from small clearings in the jungle for observation duties. The aircraft was launched while hanging from a wire, which it ran along until it gained flying speed. It was retrieved by flying into a loop on the same wire runway. The system proved highly successful, but because the war was almost over, was only used twice, launched from ships in combat conditions, one each at Okinawa and Saipan. And I'd just like to read you, just briefly, about a fellow's experience who went solo in it. After getting hooked, the plane hooked into the loop and the pilot would throttle back. That's on landing. There was a friction brake on the wire attached to the pulley, much like the ones on automobile seatbelts today, and the plane would come to a pretty sudden stop and hang there, swinging back and forth. The field where we flew the Brodie system was right next to a golf course, and we always had a big crowd of people watching. It was kind of like a circus. My checkout consisted of the instructor flying from the back seat, and then having me take over. I did 2 landings, and with each his coaching, made the loop both times. The next day I flew a couple more landings with an instructor, and he told me that I would solo the following day. I was talking about this at chow that evening, and one of the chaplains, an eager young fellow, said he'd like to fly with me on my first Brodie attempt on my own. I told him he'd better wait until I'd made a few landings, and then I'd take him. He said no, that would take the thrill out of it. So the next day he went to the strip with me, and no one objected to him getting in with me. I really didn't mind either, as I thought that a little help from above wouldn't hurt. He was the pastor, or padre. On takeoff, I pulled the plane loose just a wee bit too soon. We settled some got away okay. On the landing, everything looked just right. I saw the hook hit the loop and chop power, but just a bit too soon, and we didn't make the connection. We started to stall, so I added power right back. We did stall, but just barely touched the ground before I got airborne again. The pilot had a good view of that hook hitting the loop, but we had to wait just an instant to be sure we were hooked before closing the throttle. If I had been flying from a LST, which is a landing ship tank, I would have been in the drink. Next time round I made it, and then I made some more solo landings. I asked the chaplain if he was scared when we missed the loop, but he said no. He knew I could handle the situation. He had more confidence in me than I did. And just lastly, I only knew of one pilot who failed to check out on the Brodie system. He got his propeller caught in the loop and the aeroplane hung there, so he jumped out and broke a leg. So what would happen, a crane, well first of all on land you didn't need an airstrip, but also did the side of ships. So a crane would lift the plane with the motor going onto the wire, and they'd tie the tail wheel to the beam on the poles, and then you rev it up, and then a bit like, a short takeoff, release that, and then you go screaming down this loop, and then when you're ready you pull the release, and so there it is. So there we go. But yes, thanks for Brian for doing that. That's great. And there it is over the side of a ship. So someone likes to rig up 2 poles out here on a wire, and we'll give it a go. And if I can have a passenger, preferably a Padre, yeah.
Thanks, Tom. That's got to be the most amazing take-off and landing system you've ever come across.